Hello there and welcome to the User Group Meeting 2025. I'm Edward and I'm the Managing Director here at Vectric. It's my privilege every year at these user group meetings to have the opportunity to share with you all of the exciting new work that's emerging out of the team here at Vectric. So I get the privilege of taking all of their hard work and then making it look like it's mine, but of course it isn't. The credit all rests with them. This year is going to be a little bit different because it looks like 2026 is going to be a massive year for Vectric. We've got so many new announcements coming that we're going to do something a little bit unusual this year, and actually we're going to talk to you about a lot of the things that are coming later this year and also well into next year. So there's a lot of things I'm going to talk about over the next hour, where I hope you'll appreciate that we want to share the excitement with you about what's coming, but some of it's in very early stages still, and so there's still a lot of work to go between showing you these exciting new features, but also getting them production ready and tested and dealing with the feedback and absorbing the feedback from you, our customers, which is very important. And I'll talk a little bit later on about how you might get involved in that. If you see the things that I'm about to show you here and feel like you would like to be part of the Vectric beta test program. Okay, so without further ado, I'm going to start talking about the next major release. Hopefully lots of you out there are on version 12. And so that means you already received a really big update back in May this year, 12.5, which comprised loads of new features. And we've done a couple of other smaller updates since then, last one in September. So for those of you on the sort of 12.5 path and you're keeping up to date with the software, you will know that we've got an ongoing process here. So 12.5's sort of biggest thing really is that many of the tools that you need day to day, we've been taking a fresh look at, and we've been moving them carefully into the more advanced 3D representation that we have. So in the software, there's always been a 2D kind of drawing view and a more dynamic 3D view. And that 3D view offers us a lot of potential to make our tools much more interactive. So what we're looking really to do with each time we move a tool from the 2D view and make it enabled in the 3D view is not just to port it trivially, but to look at it afresh. And hopefully you're seeing the fruits of that work in 12.5, where many of the tools that you've been familiar with now have directly accessible properties and features in the 3D view right at your fingertips, or should I say your mouse pointer tips. And also the interactivity and previewing of what you're about to change or an edit that you're about to make is much, much clearer in the latest version. So we've been continuing that work, and you can expect that work to continue well into next year. The release that's coming next, obviously, after 12.5 is version 13. And yes, we are going to stick with version 13. So we're trying not to be superstitious about this. We're going to embrace in a Halloween festival period and say that version 13 actually is going to be very lucky for all of us, I think. It certainly contains a lot of exciting new features. I'm going to show you one of the big ones that's being worked up at the moment. And as I say, these are early phases. So while I'm excited to share this stuff with you, please do accept that the interface I'm showing you is still very far from the final version that we intend. But Hugh, the lead developer on this particular project, has been beavering away very hard to make it possible for me to at least indicate to you just how exciting I think this feature is going to be for those of you with Cut2D Pro, VCarve Pro and Aspire. It's one of those features that crosses all the product boundaries. So if I just cut across now and we take a look at a beta build, you can see it's a very hot off the press or freshly hewn from the pixel mines. And we start by opening up a project which I'm hoping some of you will already be aware of. Let's have a look in the 3D view. So this is a project that Becky worked on. I've got the link here if you're interested to get down the original files that we use to build this particular arcade cabinet that we use ourselves at various trade shows. You can see it's got some interesting joints here which are sprung so that the project can be assembled and disassembled with these neat springs. This is based on a design from my very good friend Bill Young from Shopbot Tools. Now Bill's a fascinating guy, and he has taught me more about flat panel cutting techniques than anybody else. And last year he actually retired, and he retired still very, very strongly of the view that he didn't have a need for a third dimension. He used to joke with me over a beer because he managed to achieve, as you can see, quite sophisticated 3D objects using entirely flat panel processing. And we know that this is a very, very common way of working for lots of people. So this is a particularly kind of visually interesting example, but you can imagine there's all sorts of objects that we're making all the time that at some way have to be assembled, even if it's just to make a backing panel or a stand on which the object goes, or we're going to use multiple materials. There's lots of situations where we want to actually assemble a part or assemble an object from multiple parts to get to the finished product that we're after. And this is just one of those. So if I now just pop back into the view here, we can see we've got the various parts that make up this arcade cabinet laid out with a sheet with each part, and you can see quite complicated filleted slots and grooves for the parts to move into. Now, people like Bill at Shopbot, they can hold all this in their head, so they have this fantastic ability in their imaginations to assemble this stuff. But even he would accept, and I will certainly admit, that I often miss a thing, right? So it's usually quite a big thing. So I miss a slot that I definitely need, or I make something too long or too short that needs to fit into a panel and I fail to take into account the thickness of the material I'm working with. So wouldn't it be cool if instead of just assembling these things in our imagination, we could assemble them inside the software? And that's exactly what Hugh has been working on. So if I just roll across here, we've got a sort of cheeky magic view here, where I can switch to what we're calling our assembly view. And here you can see, if I just double click these objects, you can see that we've got each of these parts now built in the 3D view so that we can check that they fit together as we expect and that the overall dimensions are correct. You can pick these objects and move them around as you would expect so that you can check your object. So I think this is a very, very powerful and useful new feature for anybody out there who's working on a project which comprises smaller parts that need to be assembled or in some way have a relationship to one another. I can also tell you, you can use either the machined simulation as the assemblable part, or you can use your raw model. So you can take any model that you've made as well, or component, and move that into the view as well. So this also opens up another interesting thing which I think is very valuable, which is when you're working with a real object. So you might have, for example, the other day I was constructing an enclosure that needed to have a Raspberry Pi touchscreen in it, and the Raspberry Pi touchscreen is obviously a purchase component. It has fixed dimensions, and I wanted to ensure that when I assembled the rest of my enclosure from plywood, that the Raspberry Pi screen would fit. So another thing you can do is actually build a quick mock-up of a real world object that you want to check for scale and fit against your internal designs. So I think this is going to be a really valuable and important part of the process from next year. So I'm going to just also show you another thing we can do. So as well as selecting these objects, we can actually go back to the sheet that created them. And here I can see the original sheet of material with the top panel carved in it. If I pin this toolpath out for a second, let's just change over the design here. So I'm going to pick the logo and just drop that out of the way. And instead, I'm going to bring our nice, funky new User Group Meeting 2025 logo in and just position that roughly there. And now we're going to VCarve. Instead of the original text, we'll just VCarve this instead. And now I can preview these toolpaths in the simulation as so. Let's get rid of the waste material. And I'm pretty happy with that. And I've got another little cheeky shortcut here that just takes a second to work. But what it does now, it takes that simulation and it moves it back into our assembly. And you can see, because the parts retain their linkage to the sheet that made them, we've been able to update the part in situ there and check the new finish. So hopefully you can see this is just one of the new features coming in version 13. There's many, many more things coming, including, as I say, the continued movement of interactive and dynamic tools into that 3D view where you can utilize the power of our sort of 3D rendering world, but also that direct input at the point where you're actually focusing. Instead of having to go across to a form all the time on the left-hand side, we're working really hard to make sure that we make the flow of your work actually build around the focal point of your design, the point that you're actually working on. Okay, so that's the first thing I want to show you that's coming in version 13, coming to somewhere near you next year. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is a little bit different again. What we've seen with the assembly view is a feature which is clearly valuable to many, many people across multiple product types. So I'm very certain that people working with Cut2D to make cabinets and slot together objects using just 2D toolpaths will find this invaluable. Equally, people in the VCarve Pro world who are adding those more decorative 2.5D fluting and carving to their work like I demonstrated just now, and also in Aspire where you're working in the full 3D world. All of these products and all of the types of work that those products are being used for would benefit from this 3D assembly, I think. But we also are aware every year we get a list of things which are much more difficult for us to pin down as being generally useful. And they fall into two categories typically for us. They're either something which requires a very, very specific piece of hardware for your CNC machine, which we know is either a little bit unusual or very expensive, right? And so that means it's very kind of hard to justify putting specific interface into the product, which for 99% of our customers will not be usable because they literally don't have a machine that supports whatever the feature is that we're trying to build. And then the other thing is something in which maybe there's a third-party application or a particular workflow that is the absolute bread and butter of your business, but actually probably not the bread and butter of somebody else's business, right? So these are things where we're talking about niche, expensive or unusual features relating to your machine or your workflow, which we find difficult to justify putting into the core software. One of the ways we've tackled that in the past is we offered automation through the gadget system. So this is still obviously an important way of people adding automation and what you might call bespoke workflow into the product without it getting in the way of everybody else, causing confusion and generally cluttering the interface. But the other way that we've done this, some of you will be aware who have bought our laser module, which is an example of this sort of problem where only some of you have a laser fitting for your CNC machines. And so it makes sense that we keep the laser toolpath strategies kind of bound up in a module that is only available to those people that want it, and it doesn't get in the way for those people that don't. So if we charge for the module, but of course if you don't have a laser, you don't have to buy it. Now this seems to us to be a very sensible way of moving forward in other parts of our business. And one of those is in what we're calling advanced machining. So people whose machine tools are much, much bigger, even than the larger machines that we have here in our workshop. And those machine tools have lots of specialist elements to them. So the controllers tend to be much more sophisticated with features that the rest of us can only dream of. And they also tend to have extensions and add-ons to the physical hardware of the machine, which again are just not common in the rest of the CNC community. So to support this, we are introducing what we're calling the advanced machining module. And just like the laser module, it's a paid upgrade. In this case, it's going to be quite an expensive paid upgrade with quite a lot of very, very high-end machining elements in it. And for today, I want to demonstrate the first and the sort of biggest of these things that's coming, which is we're calling the cabinet processor. So I'm going to go back to my version 13 beta, but instead of opening my file from the conventional routes here, I'm going to use this new option in the file menu, import cabinet cut list. Now, many of you will be aware if you use a third-party cabinet design package, and the ones we've been looking at, particularly in the last few months, KCD, Mosaic, Cabinet Sense, and Cabinet Parts Pro. These design packages generate for you typically a set of toolpaths built off a DXF master file, but you have to kind of, in your particular design, generate how many of these things you're going to require. And then we've always offered a service really internally in our higher end products of VCarve Pro and Cut2D Pro of nesting those parts automatically. And we've had a gadget which has kind of helped. If you could get everything into one folder, we had a gadget which would process through those folders. But it kind of relied on a very specific layout of files, which was not entirely straightforward for some of those third-party packages to make. And those packages also offered an awful lot of extra information which we were simply not using. So the new cabinet cut list processor that we're working on is an attempt to solve a lot of these problems. And we've tried to keep it relatively simple. Like I say, this is definitely interface which will be dramatically improved in the coming weeks. But Theo in our development team has been working very hard over the last few months on this project and working directly with some of the cabinet manufacturers as well, the cabinet software manufacturers, to produce a system which we think is pretty flexible. It starts by choosing a standard document template. So some of you may not be fully up to speed with a feature that arrived, I think, in version 11 of the software, which is the document template. And a document template is a conventional Aspire or VCarve or Cut2D document, but we save it as essentially the basis of making new documents. So you can store all sorts of things in that template, save it as a template, and from that point on, you can start from that template. I'll use it in some of the demos that we're going to see in the next hour as well. So what you do with this template is you're creating essentially a single file which has in it the sheets of material that you're typically using for your, say, your cabinet projects. So it details things like the dimensions of your sheet material, what material type they are, and other properties of that material. It also includes a full list of the toolpath strategies as toolpath templates that you're likely to apply to different sorts of geometry that comes in from your cabinet design package. And then the last thing it does is also set up the nesting parameters. So it's where you can also set up the spacing between parts, any border gaps that you want, and those features that are part of the nesting form typically. So with that template set up once, you're now good to go for all sorts of projects where you would typically realistically be using all the same settings in these circumstances. So I've set up one here, a template file. Like I say, this is just a feature that's been in since 11, but we're using it now in a very effective way here. I've also got a part list here, which is the files that emerge from my third-party package. In this case, I'm using KCD. But we've got, as I say, various other product types that we're supporting right from the get-go, and we're hoping to add more later on as we need to, and also make a custom file which will allow you to use a comma-separated file from another package, provided we can map from that comma-separated file data into our system. Then you can also do a sort of custom mapping as well. So with these set up, I've got a cut list from the package and a part list from that package, and I can just click load parts, and the cabinetry import starts to work. And you can see here that it's found that this particular cabinet layout is going to require all these parts. These are the files that contain the geometry of the parts, what material they're expected to be in, dimensions of the parts, important extra information like whether or not we can rotate this part in the nesting process, and crucially how many of these parts are required for this particular project. You can see that this is set up kind of like a wizard, so I can go from left to right here. We can see what material it's found that we're going to require to cut these parts. And also we've got the ability in the longer run to add a labels layer if you want that. So we can generate an extra layer as we bring in these parts and nest them up. We can place a custom defined piece of kind of labeling artwork over the top. And for those people whose machines are capable of supporting a label printer and placer, then we'll hopefully be able to support those in due course as well. Once we've done all that, we can simply decide whether we're going to nest and calculate the toolpaths all at once. Let's just hit the big go button, right? So now what's happening is that we are starting to bring in all those parts according to that part list. We're finding the best way to fit them into the sheets of material that were in our template. Once they're all in, we can then look at the toolpaths that are inside the template and start applying those toolpaths to all the layered information that was emerging from the DXF files. And the upshot of this really is a complete one-click process. So for those of you who are working frequently in this world or have these third-party packages as part of your workflow, it's a complete game changer because you can just go from one button click here to a full set of nested parts ready to go straight onto your CNC machine. The toolpaths calculated and everything good to go. So this is going to be one of the major features that will be part of our advanced machining module. Another interesting thing, if we zoom in here, you can see the labeling there. But another interesting thing I've got, if I go to this sheet here, in fact, let's find this one that's got more hole layouts. You can see here we've got a lot of drill holes in this part. And so the drill pattern using our conventional PEC drilling here is plunging one at a time into all of these holes. So those of you who are in the cabinetry world will know that there's a very desirable extra add-on that you can put on your machine, which is a drill bank, and that is a pneumatically operated array of drills that can work to drill in one plunge multiple holes that are of a common pitch. So you'll see here that I've added a new toolpath strategy, the drill bank. The drill bank strategy is also going to be part of our new advanced machining package. If I go in here, we can see that we've got a drill bank. It looks quite similar in many ways to the drilling toolpath strategy, as you'd expect. But crucially, when I come in here, you can see that my tool here to select is actually a drill bank, which is a new tool type. And if I select this, we can go in and look at the configuration. And here you can see that we have a template which defines that pattern of pneumatically droppable tools. It tells you, how many horizontal and vertical ones you have, what the pitch between them is, etc., and which one is the reference drill. So you can see we can set up these patterns according to your drill bank, your physical setup of your drill bank. And now I can just apply these. I'm going to just put a little tolerance in to make sure we're looking at pitches of 1.259 inches, which for those of us in the UK and Europe is 32 mil, which is the standard pitch between holes in typically in these cabinet layouts. You can see we can do some various things here. I can also select and apply this to the drill layer automatically, and we can apply that so that it will repeat. And now what we should see is, he said confidently, that did not work. Let's just do that again. I've managed to reset my tolerances. Here we go. So now you can see we've gone from plunges for every hole in the conventional drill pattern to a pattern here where we're just seeing very few plunges, and you can see now little markers around the holes. That's showing you how we've automatically detected the efficient way of using your drill bank pattern to hit these holes. And if I just simulate this in a relatively slow speed, you can see that it happening real time here. So as we go around, the drill patterns are extending the drills that we can maximize in one plunge the pattern of holes that we're trying to make. So this is drill bank support, and again, this is going to be part of the advanced machining module that's coming soon. Another thing to mention at this point is those people with controllers that can have cutter compensation on profiling. So if you're a business that's keeping track of tool wear and tear, or maybe you've got a tool change with fixed standard tool sets in, and sometimes you use the controller to correct for a slightly mismatched tool diameter using cutter compensation, we can now support that with the post processor and again in the advanced machining module when you're doing profiling. So this, again, like I say, this is a new module. It's coming soon. We are getting it out to testing hopefully in the next few weeks. So obviously, as always, we've got to be led by the testing and the feedback that we get. And as you can see, some of this is quite specialist work. But we've had really good and close work with some of the software and hardware manufacturers to get to this point. So we're feeling like this is going to be a very, very valuable package for those of you who are in this work. And you just kind of know from watching this, is this the sort of work you do? If you do, this is going to be, hopefully for you, an absolute game changer. And if not, well, the fact it's in a module means there's no requirement for you to buy it. The advanced machining module is going to get extended over the coming year or so, but for the initial release, we're hoping to get it in at a price point of around $349 as an add-on for any of the Pro products. So that's Cut2D Pro, VCarve Pro, or Aspire. Okay, that's the advanced machining module. Okay, so we've been talking there about what you might call the high end of CNC machining in terms of cost and that sort of borderline industrial use of CNC machining for pure commercial work. But obviously Vectric has a really broad product range now, and I'm going to take a moment to go all the way down to what I call the creative and fun side of things, which these days starts with a product called EasyCarve. And I'm not sure whether everyone is fully aware of EasyCarve. So EasyCarve is our entry-level 3D kind of modeling wizard. It takes you through all the process to keep it as simple as possible to make a nice little 3D object. It works crucially inside the browser. So right now I'm looking just at a normal Chrome browser, and this is just our website. So because it's in a browser, the joy of EasyCarve is it will work with Mac, PC, Chromebooks, and potentially even a tablet or a phone. Right, so depending on your screen res, and I'm not sure how the workflow of that would be. If you've not tried EasyCarve, the quickest way to find out, on the website here, I'm just going to come across, drop down the product range here, and just click the EasyCarve option, and that will take you over to EasyCarve. And notice there's a free trial to get you started. Really, if you've not had a go at this product, now is a great time to do it. And the reason for that primarily is that we have been working behind the scenes all the time with EasyCarve to continually improve and increase the power of this product. One of the things that some of you will have seen in a relatively recent update is the product initially started in a very similar style to our design and make machinist. So the original product a year or so ago just took a design and make model and it allowed you to machine it. And for your subscription, we gave you access to the entire design and make model catalog. So you could basically pay a monthly subscription, and at any time you like, dip in, grab a model and machine that model in the browser, download the file and run it. So you can see that that was obviously a useful thing, but it was kind of limited in the sense that you could only do one model. So you could pick a model as we designed it, as we laid it out, and basically cut it to whatever size you like and whatever material you like, but broadly you had to cut the design that we'd made. And gradually we've been increasing the power of this product. So recently there was an update where we could start to combine two of the models from design and make, typically a background and then a foreground object. So in the last couple of months, you've been able to take, say, a shield, but put your own motif in the middle of the shield and then cut your own crest or coat of arms entirely, again, in a nice, simple, wizard-driven, if you like, web application all the way through to a finished toolpath. And we've been kind of taking that to the next step. And I want to show you now the version of EasyCarve that's coming out literally in the next couple of weeks, okay? And this, again, this is not a cost update because it's a subscription product. This will just be the rolling out enhancements that are part of your ongoing subscription. So if you're a subscriber to EasyCarve, don't worry, this stuff is just emerges and it becomes part of your ongoing subscription. And we're continuing to commit to this product and improve it all the time. The two things that you're going to notice when we release these updates is that now we can pick not just one location on a piece of clip art or a design and make model to add to, but we're offering different layouts to help you to really broaden the range of objects that you can make with this system. Some of you will be aware of the projects of the month that we often do and the hacks of the month that we do in the design and make catalog, where you buy a kind of bundle of things together, right? But you can lay them out as you see fit to make infinite variations of the component parts. Essentially what we're trying to do now is build that in to the EasyCarve offering. So if you're a subscriber to EasyCarve, this will all get built into a system that's completely self-contained. It doesn't require you to have any of the Vectric product, but you can start to assemble and build your own designs from our component parts from the get-go. So let's see how it works. I'm bringing in now a background model, so one of our background options. You'll notice at the beginning here that I selected backgrounds. Again, like I said, this is all in the browser. I've got the browser full screened, but it is just a browser-based product here. So you can see this is the background design I've got. Some of you will be aware that we'd had these abilities to pick regions, but now we can also, we'll come to this in a second, but some of these regions can have models, some can have text objects in, and in fact, when we come to change layout here, you can see that many of these objects now have multiple layout options that you can select from. And when you select one of these other layouts, some of the layouts will offer you the option to put both text or models in any of these locations. So let's have a look at this design here. So I'm going to make a house sign. Let's add a model in here, and let's give the owl something to think about. So not a rat, maybe a dormouse. Seems a little bit more friendly. Nobody wants a rat on the front of their house unless this is turning into a Halloween sign unexpectedly, isn't it? So you've got some options here to rotate the clip art in situ. So I'm going to flip him around so it's facing in a little bit more. And actually we've got the ability to resize things inside these zones. So I'm just resizing him so that that stick just touches the edge there of the border. And then in this one, I think we'll try to do this new thing, which is V-carved text. So in the next few weeks, you're going to be able to V-carve text in EasyCarve. And just as you'd expect, it's all kind of nicely organized for you. So it's very straightforward for you to work with. You can type your text in. You've got the normal alignment tools that I'm sure you'll be familiar with from a variety of other packages. Different fonts. So we can swap the fonts over, bold and italics, as you'd expect. Okay, so you can add your own total text customization into your objects, and that will become a V-carved toolpath layer as we go through the process. So that's it. If those of you not familiar with this product, this is how easy it is. It basically just click next and it guides you through the whole process. So I can say that this is going to be 10 inches across. Let's make it in 1-inch material, I think. We'll set the Z origin to be at the top so I can pop the tool on the top of that 1-inch material. I'm going to use my little CNC 640. Now we've got tabs. I'm going to cut this out. So let's add some tabs in here so that we can just hold it down. But again, the default settings are fine. So that's good. So I've got 2 tabs now, and now let's add some toolpaths, and let's do the whole lot, right? So you can choose your tools from the tool database. Again, this is all being selected by the material type. So the feeds and speeds here should all be pretty good. And just as you'd expect with Vectric, we allow you to manage all of this stuff very, very carefully. And we also assist you to make sure that you try not to make too many errors. For those of you not too familiar with this, I'm skipping through this very fast, but there's full tutorials about EasyCarve, and there'll be some updated tutorials coming as well with these new features in the next few weeks, so just keep an eye open for that. Let's calculate these. Again, like I said, this is all happening inside the web browser. So it does take a little time, and you can see the simulation there of what that's going to look like with our end mill. Now let's add in a finishing pass. This time we should use a fine. I'm just going to use a 1/8 ball nose to finish this off. As you can see, I can basically skip through this pretty fast because a lot of this is being automated behind the scenes. Let's add the cutout. Let's use that 1/4 inch again so that at the end we'll be able to have minimum tool changes. Notice you're not having to worry about any of this. The tabs are being kept in place both through the roughing there and through the cutout. And then the final thing, which is the new thing, of course, is that we can also add our V-carving, and it automatically knows what aspect of this design is V-carvable. So all I need to do again is just pick the new V-carving tool type, which has just been added to the database, calculate that, it finds the things that can be V-carved, and it just does that for us. So we're all good to go. So at this point, I could export my toolpaths. Again, nothing much there to add, except of course you've got your usual post processes for download, and as I said, this is all working inside the browser, so it's a completely cross-platform option. Hopefully what you can see there is this is a massive step up in the variety and capability of this product to make genuinely novel, bespoke and customized objects with your own details and your own layout, or at least your own selection of objects going into those layouts. But it's controlled enough that it's really simple to use, really simple to use, and you kind of pretty much always get a great result. So that's the EasyCarve updates coming in the next few weeks. And for those of you who've not given it a go yet, now is the time, give it a go. There's a free trial. What's not to like? Okay, so the next thing I've got to talk about is really exciting, I think. Some of you will have watched Becky's video a couple of months ago. She did one about 2 months ago, 2 to 3 months ago, about how to use the existing AI, the general AI image tools out there to kind of put together some steps that would give you maybe a usable 3D model out of what I've really designed for kind of image processing, to be honest. But you can get image processing to kind of move into a slight depth map world with AI. Now, everybody's talking about AI, right? This is just the buzz phrase of the moment. And obviously, Vectric, like everybody else, has been really keeping an eye on where this technology is leading. And so we have spent quite a bit of time, and obviously Becky's video reflects the fact that we were spending quite a bit of time going through all of the existing technology and in fact back to research and academic papers on this topic. Because behind the scenes, we of course can't ignore it either. And we've been working ourselves on an AI supplement to our product range. And so now we're ready to kind of reveal that. We're hoping to release this again in the next few weeks. So without further ado, let's introduce Vectric's AI products. And again, like I said, we've actually gone back to some pretty fundamental principles here. This is very much our own implementation from fairly first principles about exactly the sort of tool that we require in the CNC world. So this isn't just a kind of mishmash of image processing. This is a genuine, from the ground up build focused on making CNC carvable models as quickly and seamlessly as possible, and to keep those models at the highest possible quality, right? And that the quality is, as always, above all, has to be really, really good. And you have to really generate good, usable, high quality models right from the get-go. And as you can understand, with the D&M team here, we know what a good model looks like. So we've been working really hard to ensure that we achieve that standard. So I'm looking again, this is just in the browser. This is a preview of the site that's coming. So again, you'll access our Vectric AIs from our website. The payment model that we're going to do is just going to be based on tokens. So the different AI processes that you can buy into will all cost so many tokens, and we're going to sell bundles of tokens, and then you can use them as you see fit. There's no specific tie-in to a specific one of our products. So if you don't like AI, and I know out there there's also quite a few people who are kind of reacting against it, you don't have to buy it, right? So it doesn't hide, you're not going to be charged anything for it, and you don't have to participate in it. But as I demonstrate this, I think you'll see it's a technology that we can't afford to ignore. So this is Vectric's, I think, right now, best in class 3D modeling AI system. So I'm going to start by, as you'd expect, the simple generation, which uses up a credit. You can see in the top corner here, you've got the number of credits I have. There's also a history, so you can see exactly how you're spending those credits. Generally speaking, generating an image is going to take 1 credit, generating a model takes about 4 credits, and then there's some enhancement options that you can opt in or out of, which also take a credit. And these credits literally reflect the computing power that we have to pay for behind the scenes to run this service. So we still think it's going to be an extremely high value option for those people that want to do this sort of work. So let's give you an example. So I am going to make I'm going to make a T-Rex head close up from the side, and let's make him roaring. Okay. You can also notice upload an image of your own, and there's a whole image enhancement and generation process. So you can either try and turn the image directly into a model, or you can have use some of our tools to enhance your photograph before you do that. In this case, I'm going through for the full text prompt. You can see here I've not had to put all sorts of decorating words in here, just really to the point. I've kept it extremely to the point. I don't need to describe that it's all to do with CNC or any of that stuff. We're dealing with all that by the fact that this is a dedicated CNC AI system. So I can pick which of these I like. I like this one because he's a little bit bigger. We only offer you a couple because basically they're all pretty good, right? So it seems that this is good enough. We've got an automated system here to try and remove the background, again, using AI to do that. And then if I'm happy with this, I'm happy to use some more credits, we can go ahead and make the model. So this takes a few seconds to do, but it's still remarkably fast. Our intention at the moment, at least initially on launch, is to keep our credit packs relatively inexpensive, and we're thinking at the moment that it's costing about 50 cents to make a model. So we'll try and pass that through. So we're looking at packs of 200 credits, and there'll be more details of this to come in the next week or so, and also an opportunity to participate in an early access test as well, which I'll provide more details with over the next few days of the user group meeting. So here we go. This is the model, and as you can see, hopefully you can see it's pretty remarkable. We've built a whole system here to, as I say, it's very important to us that these models are fully usable for the CNC job that they're intended. So you get various editing tools as part of this this process that you can use, including some quite clever things which are a bit new that we've been experimenting with. One is, obviously you can see that often you want to emphasize height in different parts of your model. And so we're allowing you actually to adjust with a curve now, non-linearly, some parts of your model. So you can stretch up the mid-range, or you can deliberately suppress the top end. So there's some really powerful tools here that allow you to basically get your model into a position where you're very happy with it. Commonly with photographs and things like that, you might find that there's some slopes or tilts in the background. So we've added some specific controls to try and take out underlying curvature or tilts and fades that are very common when working particularly with digital photographs. And that's it. Once you're happy with this, you can now download this file. At the moment, we're sort of working on the different file formats, but the file formats are all high resolution file formats, and they'll work in any of our products, is the plan. Okay, so once you've downloaded that file, you can cut back to the software here, and we can go ahead and use the model. So just to show you the full process, this is using Aspire 12.5, just the latest version of Aspire. I'm going to use a template here, which is going to allow us to dish this model. This is a good technique if you've not used it, where you can actually create a dish up front, and you can drop your objects into this scene here. So if I do that, you'll see here is our downloaded file. And here you can see that we've got really remarkable detail in a low relief. And as I said, we didn't have to do any mucking about here with the CNC specific stuff. We're just handling all that for you. So I can now position my model inside here. Let's get that nicely kind of lined up. Because again, this is a template file, everything is already good to go, and I can generate and preview my example. So you can see here, this is just from start to finish. You've just seen the entire process here to carve this really remarkable model in very high detail. That's using a 1/8 ball nose again. So very plausible, CNC specific, AI generated models coming from Vectric in the next few weeks. Like I said, I think this is really quite amazing. So we're happy to share it with you. There's just one more thing. Believe it or not, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it? How many things is that? That's some really big stuff coming later this year and into next year. But we've got one more thing which I need to talk to you about. And that is that there has been a common thread. Although you would feel like I've just covered some wildly disparate bits of technology there, there is a common thread that some of you may be considering, which is that, and it's been a very conscious thing that we've done at Vectric, all of this new stuff that we're developing and all of the work we've done to move our existing CNC tech into the browser and out of the sort of desktop environment has meant that we've been chipping away for the last, I don't know, quite a few years now at the core functionality for our CNC kind of tech, having any requirements on Microsoft or Windows, or indeed any platform, really. So in the early days, you know, we had quite a lot of stuff. We've been a Windows-only product for quite a long time. But we know that there has been a clamour for quite a while for Vectric to start thinking beyond Windows. And so for this next demo, without giving too much away, I do need to move this to the side And I'm going to need this for the next part of my demo. Okay, so for those of you where this is not enough of a hint, let me formally introduce you to Vectric Spark for the Mac. So we have been working away on an entry-level product for the Mac, built natively from the first principles. So we've really gone back to basics, looked at an introductory piece of software for the CAD/CAM world, somebody relatively new, using one of the smaller, less expensive machines to try and bring together all the lessons that we've learned from doing the EasyCarve project, and also making use of this, like I say, this technology transfer that we've been able to do, removing any dependencies on Windows, at least for the entry-level features that we need to make this product work. So just to be clear, our core product range is still remaining Windows only, and it will run on the Mac with Parallels, and it will run with the latest versions of Windows under Parallels. And for the last couple of years, if you check on the website, you can see that we build and test internally now with Parallels. So we do support that environment just as we would a conventional Windows environment. And we have to do that for some of the higher level features. But this product, we're able to start afresh with a relatively simple set of the key features that somebody starting out in the CNC world would need. And so we've been able to build our first native Mac program. So going over now to take a look at Spark, you can see it running here. The first thing to emphasize, which is important, is we fully support the existing file formats. So I'm opening up a conventional CRV file that was actually made in VCarve Pro and just copied across to the Mac. And you can see now the main interface. We've kept it very clean. So you can see that it just has a panel on the side here for dealing with the kind of mode that you're in terms of creating toolpaths, the simulation and saving of those toolpaths once they're done. And on this side, we've got a basic panel of tools. Now, these tools may change over time. In fact, I guarantee that some of these tools are going to change before release. But this is just us at the moment in the early phases of testing. The reason I want to highlight this product to everyone is because at the end of this discussion, we're going to talk about one of the things we really need to do here, which is to grow our beta test community to include some of these new products, because we need to capture the work that you're doing in them, right? In order to support things properly and to build the tools properly, we need to have people who are using these tools exactly as we intend them in real world environments to give us the feedback we need. So if you're willing to get involved in that, I'll talk at the end about how you might help us out. And because of that, I want to, share the excitement of our first Mac build. So let's take a look. As you can see, lots of this stuff, for those of you who know our software products, will be familiar. But also, hopefully you can see it's a fresh build, right? Taking everything and looking at it all again from first principles. There's just the one view, although you can swap to a very conventional 2D view as you would expect, albeit in the one place now. We've done away pretty much entirely so far with the left-hand forms panel. So you can now just pick tools and they'll pop up what they need in situ right next to where you're working. So here with the text tool, this is where you can select your fonts. You can adjust the text, bold, layout, etc. Text in a box is still supported at in this version. So generally speaking, we're trying to make the tools work absolutely where they should be in the view. So let's take a look at an example of something really cool, I think, that indicates exactly what I mean by this direct, dynamic, at your fingertips way of working. So this is the offsetting tool. And now you can see that with the offsetting tool, I can simply click on the area I want to offset, the selection that I'm offsetting, and just drag this dynamically out. And I'm going to make myself a little boundary border. So I can pick that, I can drag it back in again, and I can make my offsets as intuitively as that. This is the intention for pretty much all the tools as we work on them. So we're not just porting tools blindly and making them work as they always did in Windows. This is a native build, and we're trying to make sure that we make maximum use of the new tools and technology that's available to us. Let's pop some toolpaths on this project. So I'm going to start by selecting the sort of core elements here, and let's just run a V-carving toolpath. So I'm going to use a flat depth here of 0.5. 2 inches, but the start depth can be 0. I've got a 60-degree V-bit, as you'd expect. We've got the full tool database, very similar to the current version that we have in the core Windows products. So I can just pick these and we can just calculate as we would before. If I go back into that toolpath, we can add in an area clearance tool, because I think that we're going to need that. So let me just add in an area clearance 1/4 inch end mill. Recalculate that. So we get the usual kind of setup here, where we can cut the large flat areas with the end mill, and then just come back in and V-carve the bits where we need to get that nice sharpening finish. Okay, let's go back. You can see here I'm popping backwards and forwards between the simulation view and the kind of design view, if you like. So in the design view now, let's take this other part of our design elements, and this time we'll carve in. So I'm going to take the V-carving tool this time. We don't need the flat depth so much here, so I can switch that off, but we do need to start at the depth that we were cutting to before, so that we're carving into that base surface. I can remove the clearance tool here and just calculate that. And again, if we preview that, you can see nice carving into the base of this sign. And then finally, I'm going to come back and do the cutout. Now the cutout, again, we've got a difference here between profile and cutouts. So we've tried to really simplify things. Cutting out things is a very common, regular process, and lots of things lots of the features in profiling only really apply to cutting out, like tabs, for example, and lead-ins and ramps. So in this case, we're going to do the cutout, and you can just basically keep everything pretty much the defaults. That's done, and we cut that out, and as you can imagine, that's the final sign that we've made very quickly using the product. As you can see, if I can pop across now to save, we've got the usual array of post-processors that you can select from, your machine definitions. So all of this is very common and very familiar if you've used any of our Windows products. And also, obviously, you need to get to your machine tool. And so for that purpose, we've also built a version of vTransfer. vTransfer is Vectric's streaming little application that takes your G-code and sends it to the basic and entry-level machine tools out there that are using common controller software, in particular the Garble, G-R-B-L controller software. So either Garble or Garble HAL, which is this new variation of Garble built for a much broader range of microcontrollers. So these are the controllers that you find on very, very broad range of machines, such as Fox Alien, the Genmitsu and SaintSmart range, the CNC Labs controller also it has the same protocol. So any of these Garble or Garble HAL based controllers should work here. And this will also allow you to jog your machine, move it to the start point, set the origins, and off you go. So a completely self-contained package, all native for the Mac, taking you from design all the way through to machining. Plenty more of work to come on this product. And as I said, what we're really looking for at this point is some help with the testing process, which we're hoping to start in the new year. And that testing, we need to select people. Okay, so there's going to be a degree of selection, and we have to do that because what we'd really like to do here is ensure that we cover the different types of work people are doing, and the different levels of experience they have, and the different sorts of machine tools we want to support. But what we'd like to do is invite people to give us that sort of information so that we can help to pick. And we're creating a new page on the V&Co portal. So if you log in into your V&Co account, you'll find after the user group meeting that there's a new page where you can sign up to be involved in the beta testing program of not just this product, but some of the other things that you've seen already in this demo. Please do allow for the fact that not everyone will be selected, because we are selecting people to represent the customer base as a whole. Okay, so please do accept that you might need to have a couple of goes at this, and you might not get selected. But it would be really helpful, and we really do value those people who are willing to volunteer to improve the software for the whole Vectric community. Okay, so that's the end of my demos. Thanks very much. And we're going to move on, I think, now to a live session where there's going to be now plenty of opportunities for you to ask me, Todd and Beck, any questions that might have been arising during this presentation, and we'll do our best to answer them. See you in a bit.